Hasan drama, because he's been really taking a beating, Zach, not just from the likes of Ethan Klein and the Zionists, which we're about to talk about, but even his own fans. I wanted to show you guys this and get your reaction to it because I'm a little bit conflicted, to be honest. Let's look at Hasan's YouTube channel real quick. And as you'll see, there's been a little bit of drama that he had to respond to. This video called Spicy Back and Forth with former Bernie Sanders.
Hello.
Let's see the full
title.
He
was like the Bernie Sanders foreign policy advisor.
Bernie Sanders advisor Matt Duss. And I wasn't super familiar with Matt Duss. I'd heard about him, but I guess he has said some pretty problematic things about Israel's right to defend itself. And, a lot of the shit that we've given Bernie crap for repeating. Honestly, it makes sense where Bernie gets some of these bad talking points from. I didn't actually get a chance to watch the entirety of this discussion, but it seems like it was a spicy back and forth. It doesn't seem like Hasan just totally 100% agreed with everything the guy said, even though it also wasn't like an angry debate. I think that it was pretty amicable. Either way, he had to respond to criticism. It says, let's talk about it. This video is all about addressing that criticism. We can take a look at that in a second if you want, Zach. But one of Hasan's, sort of notable allies, I guess you could call him, is Bad Empanada. Bad Empanada has been on Hasan's stream, but he's also not afraid to criticize Hasan, which I do find refreshing. A lot of people, once they get invited on a show like Hasan, they just completely cease to criticize a guy like Hasan. Oh, we're friends now, I'm not going to criticize him. So I'm interested in your opinion on this, because again, I don't agree with everything Bad Empanada says. Sometimes the dude is downright unhinged. I'll admit it, but I'm interested in your opinion on the substance of this argument here and what you think about, whether or not Hasan handled this right. Because he has, no patience for this. He goes hard.
So Hasan Piker invited liberal Zionist propagandist Matt Duss onto his stream for a nice chat. Why Bernie's foreign policy advisor broke with DC Democrats. He even uploaded it to his channel. He never uploaded his talk with me to his channel. So this guy is Bernie's foreign policy advisor, or ever was Bernie's foreign policy advisor. Should probably ring alarm bells as to what Bernie Sanders always has been, for anyone who hasn't noticed that.
That gave massive Jimmy Dore vibes. I'm going to say right off the bat, that was a huge L for Bad Empanada. I don't know.
We say shit like that too all the time, to be fair.
I mean, that's true, but that came off as cringe. I don't know. Find an example of me saying it where it sounded like I was dead serious.
I think it's kind of Bad Empanada's sense of humor. But I hear you. It definitely was a little Jimmy Dore coded.
Yeah, but let's look at some of Matt Duss's openly extolled stances. Matt Duss in 2016 said that he endorses a piece that said that the anti-Israel left is pure anti-Semitism. He actually wrote a piece December 14th, 2023, while the genocide was ongoing. I remind you, at this time, I already made my video making the legal case against Israel for genocide in Gaza, saying that Israel's methods are not as extreme as Russia's, and it's very important to acknowledge that. At that point, Israel had already killed more civilians in Gaza than Russia had killed in Ukraine during the entire war. He called Palestinian resistance a far-right theocratic organization committing mass murder in the name of blood and soil nationalism. That is how this guy characterizes Palestinian resistance. And he spread the mass rape hoax. In December 2023, he said, denying the rape and sexual violence that Hamas committed on October 7th is disgusting. And then, he did a token thing. So he's using that to excuse the humanitarian catastrophe Israel is intentionally inflicting on the Palestinians. This is pure liberal Zionist bullshit. This is the Ethan Klein stance. Then he said, in May 2024, well after the mass rape hoax was fully debunked, so no excuse anymore. There was never an excuse in the first place for believing it, given that there was no evidence, but now there's certainly no excuse. Very much worth noting that the ICC includes rape and other acts of sexual violence in the list of Hamas offenses. It's very clear that these things happen, and it's ridiculous that some continue to deny it. Very confident there, isn't he? May 2024, this guy was saying this shit. There could be a world in which you invite this guy on, but you invite him on to destroy him. You invite him on to challenge him on this stuff, not nicely either, to really grill the fuck out of him and ruin him forever. So that's what you should do with people like this. You invite him on. Your first question is, so you claim that Hamas did mass rape on October 7th. So why have you never provided any evidence of that, even though you've consistently spread this genocide-enabling blood libel from the very beginning? Hey, why did you say that Palestinian liberation is blood and soil nationalism? You pin them on this live and you get them stuttering. You debunk their entire narrative. That's the utility that these guys have. They are tools to be used. You destroy them, you upload the video of it, and then you just fucking forget about them. That's not what Hasan did here. He gave him a softball interview and promoted him. It's important to note that people like this, he's trying to break into alternative media. because someone like this is no longer of much use to the Washington D.C. Sort of think tank industrial complex and political advisor complex that he has mostly been involved in for his entire.
At this point, Bad Empanada hasn't really said anything that I disagree with. I mean, if I was Hasan Piker, I'd be like, bro, have him on your show and you do this. Like, that would be my instinct reaction to this kind of criticism if I'm Hasan. But I think that it's valid critique, right? I think that it is valid to say, and I haven't watched the entire Hasan exchange. Maybe he does turn it up and grill him more than from what I saw. He did headline it, This Gets Spicy. But it wasn't like, from what I saw, they were like shouting at each other or that he was like really like hammering this guy's balls to the wall. But again, that was 2 minutes of what was probably an hour and a half long conversation. So I'm not in a place to summarize the whole thing. However, I do think that Bad Empanada's point stands. Like, if you are going to have a guy on here or on your show who is like kind of 50-50 on an issue that is extremely important on the left, that you find a way to hold their feet to the fire on it, that you find a way to engage with them with the passion and the vigor that you would engage on that subject if they were not there. And when you're going to be very, boisterous and hard line on air, I think you do need to reflect that when you're having engagements with people who completely disagree with you and are trying to, put forth talking points that undermine your position to your audience. You have to say that's absolutely not true. Here is the truth. And why do you continue to repeat a lie? I think that's all very, very fair for Bad Empanada to bring up.
Oh, yeah, me too. And he's given Hasan credit in the past. He's also criticized Hasan in the past for interviewing Bernie Sanders and, conducting that interview in a similar softball fashion when it came to these topics. It's a tough thing because as a streamer, I feel like I've failed in the past too. We've had interviews where I feel in retrospect that I didn't do enough of a good job pushing back. Right?
And you do a way better job than I do. I'm going to be real. I'm not.
I appreciate it.
I like to be the levity of this broadcast, and I also like to be the fire. This is criticism I could take, right? That's another thing that I think it's fair to say, right? We all could do a better job of doing this. So it was big of you to bring that up because you do the best job, I think, on our show of being like, fuck you, dude. I actually am not going to let you say that shit on our show. And I deeply admire and appreciate that about you because I have this, the trap that you have to get out of if you are going to have an interview like that. And I think that it happens to Hasan because Hasan wants to be liked by people, right?
He's a chill guy.
And you just want to be cool with everybody. And like, let's just, can we just take it easy, And he doesn't want to be mean, right? But at the end of the day, you're not being mean. They're coming on this platform because they're doing a job and you're doing a job, right? And you don't have to be like, fuck you, your mother's a whore. Like you don't have to be ad hominem, but you do have to, hold the line. And I think that this is a good reminder for all of us that even if the person does have some sort of progressive laurels, you still have to be able to hold the line. And you want to, have the same kind of vigor and tenacity that you would have if you were engaging with somebody that, you had a more combative relationship with when it's a hot button issue that really impacts people's lives like this.
100%. Let's take a look at Hasan's response because, I agree with everything you said. And I also think that Hasan just is a chill dude by his nature. He doesn't really, easily get worked up.
Mm-hmm.
His vibe is kind of just a chill dude. And even though they did disagree in that interview, it didn't get really feisty. So I'm interested to see what his defense of this is. Because, no one's perfect. And obviously Hasan does amazing work when it comes to Palestine and when it comes to his, unvarnished, honest, radical takes on the subject matter.
Yep.
He's easily one of the best in the space and his influence cannot be denied as a positive thing. But obviously no one's perfect. So I'm interested to see what his response to this is and whether or not he agrees with any of the criticism from his own base. I mean, he had to put out this whole video, which by the way, got a lot more views than the actual conversation itself. This one got 153,000. The actual conversation with Matt Duss got 50K views or less, which is really low for Hasan's channel. And honestly, that's an issue that we unfortunately encounter too. It's like when you just post a substantive 30-minute conversation with someone, it doesn't do as well, regardless of who they are, not because of the Zionism, but it's harder to get that stuff to be clickable. Whereas this, of course, did 3 times the views because he's addressing the drama.
Yep.
It's awesome. Nasty all up and down Reddit. Saw that I was getting canceled simultaneously by Bad Empanada as not being sufficiently pro-Palestine, which is true. That's right. It's mine now, so I'm pro-Israel. I'm Israel Chai, That's right. I can't wait for my major media career. None of it is relevant. We'll talk about some of it as a joke. It doesn't really matter. Squirrel has been trying to cancel leftists for a while. Fed behavior? No. They're very passionate about this issue. They've yelled at me in the past. Again, like I said, we can have healthy and reasonable disagreements with one another. It's not a cancellation. You deadass platform is genocide denier. The irony, of course, is that if you were to listen to the interview, these are some of the things that I addressed. This is some of the things that he also said. He says it's a genocide.
He may be making this decision because he's sensing a change in the weather, but that change in the weather is what's very important here. That's the result of not only of the inescapable, undeniable reality of starvation and genocide, but a movement that has been working very hard for many years.
I do believe that a lot of people are going to come back in here today and just like make a mountain out of a molehill, which is fine. If you guys want to be on this wavelength, that's all right. I'm going to keep it pushing. I'm going to keep talking about things that I think are relevant and important. Yeah, because he's covering his.
I think that Hasan actually responds to this very well. He could, I think, take some of the criticism a little bit more to heart than he's rolling it off his shoulder. But I like the way that, you know, he's able to categorize someone like the squirrel account, which does get, you know, kind of crazy. Like, I remember one time they triggered me a little bit, and I was like, you know, they were tweeting about how like Bernie Sanders loves rape, and I was like, okay, dude, like, could you just like please not like do this? Like, I don't think this is very helpful.
This account goes hard. They don't give a
but
fuck.
it's also like, dude, you know, like you're really worried about Bernie Sanders like at this time, and I'm like, you know what? We need people like this to be hardline as fuck. And so when Hasan's like, oh, I've been yelled at by Squirrel, like they've come for me a few times. It's like sometimes we all need to be checked, and I think
that's kind of cringe too. The Squirrel was saying he should have on Aaron Mate and Max Blumenthal. That's kind of cringe.
Oh yeah, Gavin already dealt with Aaron Mate, and we both dealt with Max Blumenthal. So let's just fucking move on from that. Max Blumenthal said some crazy shit on our show, but yeah. Anyway, that guy's.
They both said a ton of fucking crazy shit, and they both fucking done war crime propaganda themselves and apologia for Russia's war crimes over and over again. They made a whole fucking career of that. So I do think that's pretty outrageous.
They're both nepo babies as fuck.
Yeah. Either way, that's an aside. We don't have to go down that rabbit hole again. But that is kind of funny that this Z Squirrel account is like, how dare you talk to this guy? You should have on this other war crime apologist who spent an entire fucking 3 years laundering and defending the war crimes of an imperialist power themselves. Like, yay.
And not only that, Max Blumenthal did a bunch of weird propaganda that was easily debunked about Venezuela and the cost of living there. And like, it was like not done from the POV of like uplift. It was like, oh my, it was
propaganda.
Bad. It was literally propaganda. Yeah. Because it's like, he would be like, oh, wow, look, they say there's no bread in Venezuela, and then go to a store that's selling bread that nobody can fucking afford to buy if they're Venezuelan. Like, that is literal propaganda.
He was like, this loaf of bread is 5 cents. It's cheap. And then it was like, oh, that's how much your average Venezuelan makes in a month. They can afford one loaf of bread a month. Not to say we should invade Venezuela and liberate it, obviously, but that doesn't mean you also have to go do propaganda about how it's actually a paradise and a communist utopia or whatever, just because America doesn't like it.
It's exactly what Tucker did in Russia when he was trying to cuddle up to Putin and do all of that shit. He was like, look at their grocery stores over here. They have 3 different kinds of peanut butter. Wow. In America, we have 7 different kinds of peanut butter, but I can't afford any of them on a working class paycheck. You know, and it's like, actually, if you do the math, it's like, you know, inflation's also hitting Russia pretty badly. Anyway.
Yeah. So either way, Hasan clearly does not take this seriously. I think some people in chat were pointing out that like he may seem friendly with Bad Empanada. He had him on the stream one time, but like some people kind of get the sense that Hasan's actually annoyed by Bad Empanada. So maybe after he had him on the stream, he kind of thought, okay, well, this guy's not going to criticize me anymore.
The threat.
Right. But Bad Empanada's like, you know, too unhinged. He doesn't give a fuck.
I respect that.
I do too. I genuinely respect
that.
Even when I don't agree with Bad Empanada, I do agree I agree that it's kind of respectable how he just doesn't give a fuck about like the clout. He doesn't give a fuck about like the, you know, the social points that he gets from being seen with Hasan Piker. He's just as willing to come out here and say shit, even if, again, sometimes I disagree with it. So it's a tough one, you know, and I also don't want to fall into this thing where it's like, if you have someone on your podcast, you have to grill them and interrogate them and hold them to account for everything they've ever said that you disagree with, right? Because it's like, okay, well, that's just not really everyone's vibe. Like, if you're Mehdi Hasan, I get it. Like, that's your thing. Like, I'm going to fucking interrogate you. And I don't care who you are. Even if I theoretically agree with a lot of what you're saying, you're in the hot seat right now. Not really the vibe that Hasan brings to the table. You know, not that he's a bad debater. He's done really well in several debates. But I think for the most part, you know, he wasn't going into this conversation like, time to platform a Zionist, time to platform someone who loves genocide, you know? Yeah. And I think that, you know, Bad Empanada could have been a little bit more charitable, even if I agree with, you know, the ultimate substance of what he's saying
Yeah, for sure. I mean, like, it's tough, right? And people will be like, "You're kissing Hasan's ass. You guys always kiss Hasan's ass." It's like, dude,
Not true. We were just shitting on.
yeah, we
Hassan
took a
for
fat shit on Hasan
disagreeing
because I
with him
thought
on
that,
Jank.
yeah, 100%. I'm prepared to do that. But what I also think is fair is that you have to be at least somewhat understanding that not everybody is going to be everything, right? To Gavin's point, not everyone is Mehdi Hasan. And it doesn't mean that a guy like Hasan Piker shouldn't have a conversation with Bernie Sanders' former foreign policy advisor, right? Because it is very telling to the audience when that guy gives his point of view. Like, this is the kind of guy that can get Bernie's ear, right? So how does he feel about what's happening in Israel, Palestine? Sure. But also, what's Bernie thinking about Saudi Arabia and Yemen right now? What's Bernie thinking about Syria right now? What's Bernie thinking about Iraq and Afghanistan right now? Because guess what?
We gotta stay forever, folks.
Right. What's Bernie's position on the United States presence in Somalia? These are all things that I would be curious to hear about. Obviously, Russia, Ukraine, Bernie's very outspoken about, but a lot of the other United States conflicts, I know he's broadly opposed to, or I would assume that, but I would be very curious to hear, what's his understanding about that? How would Bernie Sanders, analyze these situations? Because to be honest, guys, very disappointed with how he's reacted and responded for the most part to the Israel-Palestine. Yeah, I think he's failed to meet the moment.
He hasn't even called it a genocide. He
No.
literally still to this day will not call it a genocide, which is genuinely fucking outrageous. It meets the legal definition by every fucking standard.
Which he knows, by the way. I think the reason that he won't do it is, and a lot of people have pointed this out, I'm not the first one, but because he knows the legal repercussions and the responsibility and the actions that you would have to legally take, because then he goes and he sends weapons for defense to a nation doing a genocide, and he's called it a genocide. He's complicit in that genocide in the international criminal court system, which he would totally be, and that's why he doesn't want to engage with that.
Wait, how would he be complicit?
Because if you are going to recognize that a nation is doing a genocide, right, and then you are going to vote to send weapons to that nation where they are going to use those weapons to do a genocide, you would be legally complicit in participating in an ethnic cleansing.
Gotcha.
Which he doesn't want to call it that, because he wants to be able to say that the weapons he's voting to send over there are for defense only.
Yeah, that's crazy. I guess you're probably right about that. Did you see that? I think it was like one of the representatives from Massachusetts recently, like the other day, called it a genocide.
No.
That was pretty cool. She's like the House Whip or some shit like that. And she was at a meeting and was like, fucking called it a genocide. Yeah, right there.
Catherine Clark.
Yeah.
Here, I'll play this.
Because when I saw this, I was like, come on, Bernie, how is this fucking random Catherine Clark lady like doing better, being more honest than you on this? This is fucking crazy. I've never even heard of this thing.
Oh, yeah. I mean, Emmanuel Cleaver, who is like a total mixed bag Democrat, right? He's not all bad. He's not all good. He called for a ceasefire way before Bernie Sanders did.
To continue to have an open heart about how we do this, how we do it effectively, and how we take action in time to make a difference. Whether that is stopping the starvation and genocide and destruction of Gaza, or whether that means we are working together to stop the redistricting.
What a vile
that is
anti-Semite.
going on.
This is crazy.
Yeah.
Anyway, yeah, I do feel like, more people are starting to be honest about that. It's crazy that it's really unfortunate that, people like Bernie weren't able to lead the way in that sense.
Yeah.
I think AOC's called it a genocide. She's been disappointing on it. She voted for the fucking Iron Dome bullshit, but she did call it a genocide.
100%. And I was disappointed to see that Bernie still didn't follow suit, because she was also late to the party. She was not one of the first people in Congress. Ilhan Omar and Rashida Tlaib.
You remember those actors had to like scream at her in dinner and be like, call it a genocide? She's like, I fucking did, stop, or whatever. Either way, we got more. Honestly, that's just the amuse-bouche.
Look out the door if you hear an ambulance. The Vanguard will be there, sir. The Vanguard will be there, sir. The Vanguard will be there, sir. The Vanguard will be there. Be